most well-known rock and metal bands of all time. They're best recognized for being one of the first thrash bands, but their influence extends far beyond that genre. Enter Sandman, their most famous song, is played at almost every athletic event. They've recorded 10 studio albums, won 8 Grammy Awards, and garnered a slew of other honors, including 2 Metallica days in San Francisco. Over the course of their nearly 40-year career, they've had a few lineup changes, but they've remained a very consistent organization. They had to deal with the loss of bassist Cliff Burton, but they came back stronger than ever. Metallica is one of the most well-known rock and metal bands of all time. Metallica was founded in October 1981 by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. Their debut gig, with guitarist Dave Mustaine and bassist Ron McGovney, took place a few months later in March. Later in the year, Cliff Burton took over for McGovney, and the band relocated from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Kirk Hammett joins Metallica, 1983. Metallica fired Mustaine in April 1983 when the band decided to employ Kirk Hammett as lead guitarist. Mustaine's drinking behavior could no longer be tolerated by the rest of the band. Because I was a violent drunk, I'd be angry and belligerent. When I was drinking, I lost all inhibitions, which didn't go over too well in the end. John Wiederhorn, a writer and Loudwire contributor, asked Mustaine about the situation. Fortunately, he found success when he formed Megadeth with fellow Big Four thrashers. Metallica signed to Johnny Z's Megaforce Records with a confirmed lineup of Hammett, Burton, Ulrich, and Hetfield. The label's founder told Loudwire that he knew he wanted to be a part of Metallica's journey from the beginning. He said, "I knew there was going to be a legacy." Kill 'Em All, the quintet's debut album, was released on July 25, 1983. It was initially titled Metal Up Your Ass and was one of the earliest thrash albums published before the genre became widespread. The band went on tour with Raven after the album was released, which helped them develop a reputation in the metal community. Metallica released Ride the Lightning, 1984, the band's sophomore album, was recorded in Copenhagen, Denmark, and released on July 27, 1984. This album, which included the songs Fade to Black, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and Creeping Death, was a financial success and included more complex instrumentation than its predecessor. Metallica signed to Elektra Records, 1984. Elektra Records executives saw one of Metallica's gigs while they were on tour in support of Ride the Lightning, and signed the band in September of 1984. Metallica released Master of Puppets on March 3, 1986, and it is largely regarded as the band's best studio album. It was certified gold the same year and reached number 29 on the Billboard 200, making it the most successful of the first 3 albums. The band then embarked on a tour with Ozzy Osbourne. Cliff Burton dies, 1986. When the band was on tour in Sweden in September 1986, their bus driver lost control and the vehicle flipped. Burton, who was 24 years old at the time of the collision, was killed instantly. Ulrich had been brought to the hospital with minor injuries, and Hetfield was inconsolable the next day, according to Anthrax's Scott Ian. "It was a bad scene, and words just can't explain how gloomy it was," the guitarist stated a few years ago on the Talk Is Jericho podcast. Jason Newsted joins, 1986. Following Burton's death, the band was unsure of their future plans. However, they gained permission from Burton's family to look for a replacement, and in October of 1986, they persuaded Jason Newsted to join the band. Metallica released the $5.98 EP, Garage Days Re-Revisited, 1987, on August 21, 1987, Metallica released its first collection of recorded tracks, which featured Newsted on bass. The EP was entirely comprised of cover songs, and the price was included in the title to ensure that fans did not overpay for it. Metallica released And Justice for All on September 7, 1988, as their first full-length album with Newsted. The album reached at number 6 on the Billboard 200, with songs like One, Eye of the Beholder, and Harvester of Sorrow. Within 9 weeks of its release, it was certified platinum. In 1989, Metallica received their first Grammy nomination for And Justice for All, which was nominated for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance Vocal or Instrument. When Jethro Tull were revealed as the category winners, the band performed One and waited to receive the award. Metallica won their first Grammy in 1990 for Best Metal Performance with the song One, following the historic Jethro Tull Grammy loss. They won the same category the next year with Stone Cold Crazy, and the same category again in 1992. Metallica release Metallica, 1991, popularly known as the Black Album, was released on August 12, 1991, and became their most commercially successful album to date. This time around, the band teamed with producer Bob Rock, who was recognized for his work with Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, and Motley Crue, resulting in a hard rock sound rather than the heavier thrash they had been releasing earlier. Songs like Enter Sandman, The Unforgiven, and Nothing Else Matters helped the band break through to the public, and the album debuted at number 1 when it was released. In 1992, Metallica and Guns N' Roses went on a co-headlining tour. Hetfield caught fire on stage from one of the pyrotechnics during Metallica's set at the ill-fated Montreal show, and he was transported to the hospital with second and third-degree burns. Guns N' Roses arrived much later than expected, and when they reached the 90-minute mark, Axl Rose walked off because his throat was troubling him. The result was a riot. Metallica release Load, 1996, the band ended up with enough songs for a double album when they went into the studio to begin on the follow-up to Metallica. On June 4, 1996, they released their first album, Load. It was the band's second number 1 record. The album artwork was produced by Andre Serrano. Blood and Semen 3 was the name of the piece, and it was composed entirely of his blood and semen. Metallica release Reload, 1997, the second batch of tracks from the Load sessions, Reload, was released on November 18, 1997. Serrano created the cover for this issue using piss and blood. This album also debuted at number 1. Metallica release Garage Inc. On November 24, 1998, the band released Garage Incorporated, a double covers album. Covers of songs by Black Sabbath, Merciful Fate, The Misfits, and others were included. On March 7, 1999, Metallica was honored into the San Francisco Walk of Fame. 300 persons attended the ceremony, which included the presentation of a bronze plaque. Mayor Willie Brown declared the day official Metallica Day. Metallica release S&M, 1999, Metallica performed with the San Francisco Symphony in April 1999, conducted by Michael Kamen. The songs were recorded and produced into a live album titled S&M, Symphony and Metallica. This was Newsted's final studio album with the group. Metallica vs. Napster. Metallica discovered their song catalog on Napster, an online music file sharing service, in 2000. The band decided to file a lawsuit against the corporation for copyright infringement and other offenses. Ulrich testified in front of the United States Senate on July 11, 2000. The two parties reached an agreement, and Napster later declared bankruptcy. Jason Newsted leaves Metallica in January of 2001. He told John Wiederhorn, "It wasn't simple to walk away from them." For years, he had been injured on stage due to head bashing, and he also wanted to work on a side project called Echo Brain. Due to his physical difficulties and the fact that he wouldn't be able to devote as much creative contribution to Metallica if he worked with another band, he believed leaving was the wisest solution. James Hetfield enters rehab, 2001. While Metallica was recording Saint Anger, Hetfield went to rehab for drinking and addiction. He worked there from July until December of 2001. The recording of the album resumed in May of the following year. Robert Trujillo joins Metallica, 2003, during the recording sessions for Metallica's new album. Bob Rock performed bass. They auditioned bassists for months before bringing in Robert Trujillo of Suicidal Tendencies and Ozzy Osbourne's band in February of 2003. Metallica release Saint Anger, 2003, Metallica's 8th studio album, was released on June 5, 2003. While it arrived at number 1, it got mixed reviews, with many critics praising Ulrich's extensive use of the snare drum throughout the album. The self-titled lead hit, on the other hand, went on to win a Grammy for Best Metal Performance the following year. Ulrich's extensive touring and weariness finally caught up with him on the way to Download Festival, and he suffered a mental breakdown on the plane. He was admitted to the hospital. For a few songs, Slayer's Dave Lombardo sat in on drums, but Joey Jordison of Slipknot played the remainder of the show. Metallica released Death Magnetic on September 12, 2008, 5 years after the release of Saint Anger. This album too debuted at number 1 and marked a return to the band's previous sound. Guitar Hero, Metallica released in March of 2009, Metallica were recognized with their own Guitar Hero game. It included 28 Metallica tracks as well American Samoa 21 other artists' songs chosen by the band's members. In April of 2009, Metallica was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jason Newsted and Cliff Burton's father, Ray Burton, joined the four members on stage to accept the trophy. Dave Mustaine had also been invited, but he was on the road at the time. During the ceremony, they performed Master of Puppets and Enter Sandman. The Big Four concerts in 2010, Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax performed together for the first time. They performed a series of events dubbed the Big Four concerts throughout the year. Metallica release Lulu, 2011, the band's collaboration with Lou Reed, was released on November 1, 2011. It was Reed's final full-length studio album before his death. Metallica performed a series of gigs at the Fillmore in San Francisco in December 2011 to celebrate their 30th anniversary as a band. Orion Music More, Metallica's own festival, ran for 2 years before being cancelled. The first iteration took place in Atlantic City, New Jersey on June 23 and 24, 2012, with the thrash veterans performing Ride the Lightning one day and the Black Album the following. At the Detroit installment of Kill 'Em All in 2013, they performed the entire game. Orion, which included a diverse selection of bands from a variety of genres, proved to be a financial disaster for the band, and it was cancelled after 2 years. The first annual Metallica Day at AT&T Park, home of the San Francisco Giants of Major League Baseball, was a thrilling evening. Lars Ulrich threw out the first pitch, while James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett teamed up to perform the national anthem. Metallica became first band to perform in all 7 continents on December 8, 2013. The band performed a modest show in Antarctica called Freeze 'Em All, making them only the second band to ever perform there. They were later acknowledged as the first band to perform on all 7 continents by the Guinness Book of World Records. Hardwired to Self-Destruct, their most recent album, was released on November 18, 2016. It was their 6th album to debut at number 1 in a row. In February of 2017, Metallica established their All Within My Hands Foundation. According to their website, their purpose is to support workforce education, hunger relief, and other essential local services. They frequently collaborate with Feeding America. Metallica announced Hetfield's re-entry into rehab prior to their fall 2019 tour of Australia and New Zealand with Slipknot. Following his rehab, Hetfield made his first public appearance in January 2020 at the Peterson Automotive Museum Presents Reclaimed Rust, the James Hetfield Collection event.